Welcome to episode 6 of Marathon Talk, powered by Abbott World Marathon Majors. On this week's show, we'll be talking about Eliud Kipchoge's running Boston, finally, the cross-country race that went through a carriage house, the amazing times ran in Valencia, a battle of the sexes in Honolulu, plus an inspirational tale of wheelchair racer JohnBoy Smith.
Yes, welcome to episode 6, and we can't kick off the show without talking about the World Cup football and specifically the England game. Come on, Deena. We were actually texting each other a little bit, weren't we?
It was so frustrating. Just some of the calls that the referees made, France being so aggressive, but what a game. You know, I actually ran on the treadmill for an hour and a half. That's a record for me because I was watching the game on my phone, this tiny little screen as I'm bouncing up and down every once in a while when England, who possessed the ball much of the game, much more than France, anytime they were near the goal, I'd straddle the treadmill and look closely at my phone. They looked like little ants scurrying around the field, but I did watch it on this little square, but it was a frustrating game.
It was just a bit frustrating. I mean, I'm no football pundit. However, it was frustrating. And the difficult thing was, I think it was, it was obviously a physical game. And from, my very biased point of view, there were some decisions which didn't go in England's favours, which was represented by 2 penalties, and a couple of free kicks just outside the penalty box. And of course, one of them, Harry Kane scored brilliantly. But then the second one, excruciatingly, he popped it over the bar, and of course, that was enough to not go into extra time, and saw England's departure from the World Cup at quarter-final. So, oh well, I went sobbing home to bed.
I bet. And the final is coming up this weekend on Sunday. So if you're a football fan, make sure to tune in for the World Cup. But this is about marathon season. And aside from watching football, what have you been up to, Martin?
Well, I certainly haven't been shoveling 5 foot of snow. Before we started recording, you're like, hang on, let me know when you're in because I'm busy. I'm shoveling 5 foot of snow. And it made me laugh because in some parts of the UK at the moment, there's been a lot of snow for the UK. What a lot means is like about 6 to 10 inches, maybe. So like that would be a lot of snow, a lot. So not a foot, right?
Right. 5 centimeters and kids' school is getting canceled. We get 5 feet of snow and I had to get out early and shovel out the car so that I could get Piper to school. So
yeah, and your school goes ahead, right? Yours is like, okay, it's just 5 feet. Like wait till it gets to 10, then we'll close the schools.
Yeah, Piper couldn't even have walked to school today because the snow is taller than she is. So shoveling the car out is what had to be done.
Well, we had very slippery conditions. I had to leave a little bit earlier to get my boys to school, but we were walking. I reckon we had about 2 mil of ice, maybe. Like, honestly, it's been, yeah.
You can't even make a snowman out of that, Martin.
You can't. The boys try, but they really can't. So I think you guys are way, way ahead. Of course, in terms of preparation for snow and probably running in the snow as well. I did go for a little run. I did 10 miles. In like our 2 mil of snow, which is basically like the icing sugar on a cake. It's just a dusting that we had. I did a 10 miler. Tell you what, I did ache though. Don't know why. I ache. Like you're probably used to it. Perhaps your body uses a bit more like stability muscles and proprioception's a little bit different. So you're focusing a bit more on ways of running that you don't normally have to do.
Definitely. I think mentally and physically, it's a little more intense running in adverse conditions. And this week, the Abbott World Run Club has their Christmas tree challenge. So hopefully everybody is tuned into that and getting ready to do 12 days of running, starting, it's a ladder. Like you start day 1 with 1 mile, go up to 6 miles, and then come back down to 1 mile again. A fun challenge to get everybody sticking to their running routines for the holidays.
Are you going to do that, by the way, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1?
I am, and I'm so excited. I told you that I ran on the treadmill to watch the World Cup game, England versus France, but I also got out with ski goggles on and ran the other day in the snow because it was pelting my face. So I ran in ski goggles, and I am committed that even if I have to do that for the Christmas tree challenge, I am signed up and ready to go.
So I very rarely wear tights. Like, you probably run all the time in tights in the winter, right? But I very rarely do. And I have worn tights this week, which is a big thing for me because they're a bit like, have you ever heard the saying, Deena, shites?
No, no.
It's the cross between shorts and tights.
Oh
So the male runners that run around Mammoth, would they wear shites? Because this is where you wear tights, but you wear running shorts over the top. Is that a yes or a no in Mammoth?
Yes, I've actually seen people do that. I didn't know there was a term, but
Yeah.
I've seen people do that. Yeah, maybe it's cold outside. The more layers, the better.
Okay, well, good luck if you're doing the Christmas tree challenge, and let's move on with the rest of the show. There's been quite a lot going on since we last spoke, and one of the biggest pieces of news is that Eliud Kipchoge, none other than the greatest of all time, world record holder in the men's marathon, has announced he's heading to Boston in April to go for his 5th star and 5th different majors win. He's definitely not going to have it all his own way, though.
Yeah, I think this is such a great matchup because former champion Evans Chebet is also signed up to run Boston. And to me, this is the meeting of the masters. You've got these two men that were tied in the Abbott World Marathon Majors Series 14. The win went to Eliud Kipchoge because he broke the world record in Berlin. But this is going to be a great matchup because Eliud Kipchoge is a great time trial racer. He runs fast. Evans Chebet is a patient master of tactical running. So this is just going to be a great race to witness. It's really on Evans Chebet's terms that Eliud Kipchoge is going to be meeting him in Boston.
Do you think, though, in that situation, in that scenario, Chebet will think to himself, well, I kind of know what Kipchoge is going to do? You know, because Kipchoge really only has, like, oh, this sounds awful, but he's kind of got one box, right? He's got this one big weapon. It's to go out as hard as he can for as long as he can and hope nobody else can hold on. You know, I don't know, you know, if he's kind of got the same level of experience, and probably I imagine some people would pull me up on this, but, you know, would he run like a devastating 5K between 25 and 30K? You know, so as a strategist, is it more about that even metronomic, let's go through in 59.50 and then see what happens in the second half? Or is it going to be, I'm going to play with the pace? And if so, what would Chebet do? Would he go with it? Would he hold back? I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Right. I mean, Evans Chebet played that game in New York, patiently letting the leader go out recklessly and under world record pace, and he timed it beautifully. So maybe he would do the same thing. Maybe not. Maybe he has a little more respect for Eliud Kipchoge. But does Kipchoge go out hard? I don't think so on Boston's course. I think that would be reckless. So I'm really excited to see this showdown. Speaking
of showdowns, I think I said last week, last time we spoke, that my wife Liz was out in Turin at the La Mendria Park, just outside Turin, actually, for the European Cross Country Championships. I don't know. I imagine, Deena, you probably didn't get to catch any of it on TV, but it was amazing.
It was such a great race. And I actually loved watching it because the Alps, it was just so beautifully staged. It was sloppy, right? Just like cross country should be. There was a lot of slipping and falling, but the Alps in the background, the backdrop of that park was just so gorgeous. And how fun that the runners got to go through the carriage house of the castle. That was just so cool that they were able to do that. It was fun. And it made me reflect on places that I would want to run through. When I asked my daughter, she said, I want to run through a Sephora. I thought, oh gosh, like a Sephora? Could we get more creative? How about the Taj Mahal or Westminster Abbey? Like, let's get something a little more historic. But no, her answer was Sephora. So I'd love to hear from listeners if there's any places out there that they would like to run through.
Well, it was interesting to watch because the racing I loved. And you know, I'm a fan of cross country and I've watched it and done it for years and years and years. But actually, just in recent years, I'm a little confused about where cross country is. The position of it used to be really stable and really strong, and it used to be a mainstay, particularly of British domestic kind of running and training, and all the classic, British stars would use cross country, particularly in their marathon and track preparation. And then it lost its way for a little bit. And world cross changed, and like they start bringing in different distances and different events. And I'm like, I'm not really sure where this is sitting. But for the first time in a few years, I watched the European cross country from end to end, and I really loved it. And I loved it because the racing was exciting. It was a good lap course with this real killer of a hill, like a proper uphill. And then they went through this carriage house, which was like a museum, slightly odd, with horses, like model horses, replica big model horses and carriages in this beautiful setting at the top of this castle. And it had all been like astroturfed and decked out so you could run through it. And down the other side was just an electric let go, and the athletes were just letting their legs run. And in some of the races, it was, your technical ability to run uphill and your technical ability to then let go and run downhill that won or lost races for them. So it was really, really exciting.
It was also a course that you couldn't really get a rhythm. You're going through the carriage house. The turns were so tight. And some of the photos I got a big kick out of on social media were some of the teams warming up the day prior because they weren't in their spikes. They were just going on a jog of the course, and using their hands to help get them up that hill was just really comical. It made me excited to watch the race the next day because I knew it was going to be tactical and sloppy, and we were going to see some falls.
There was a great set of races in the senior men's and women's, of course. It was Jakob Ingebrigtsen, the Norwegian, and his Norwegian counterpart, Caroline Grøvdal, who made it a Norwegian double. She hung on to take the senior women's title. That was a really interesting race, and Ingebrigtsen looked completely dominant, actually, from start to finish. It was Emil Keres, the British runner from Leeds, who gave him a bit of a run for his money, but certainly in interviews afterwards, Keres had the run of his life, really, to take a silver medal, but Ingebrigtsen sort of let him go for a little bit. I think he didn't realise who he was and perhaps didn't consider him as a cross-country threat, and then sort of decided to reel him in and then pushed on. I think he's undefeated since junior, so he's won juniors, under-20s, under-23s and a couple of seniors, so obviously likes to run cross-country. I also felt for the young Irish guy in the under-20s. Yeah, it was the under-20s race, because he looked really good coming into the finish. Dropping down in the under-20 race, it was Nick Griggs had pulled away from Britain's Will Barnicoat and looked set, actually, to take a cracking victory. But as they descended this hill at the end, there's a tiny bit of flat to go like full gas. And as they're approaching the line, probably 150 meters, you could see Griggs starting to wobble, and he just sort of wrong-footed on a small, looked like a little bit of lumpy ground. And as he was doing it, Will Barnicoat came from nowhere, actually blasting it, and literally went past him on the line. There's a fantastic some fantastic pictures on social media of Barnicoat taking the win, and the look on Nick's face as he realised he's been taken on the line. Cross country can be so brilliant to watch and so fantastic to run in, but also so cruel, can't it?
Yeah. And so if you're looking for any bit of drama in your week, do head to social media or Athletics Weekly and enjoy the pictures and feedback from European Cross. Your wife is still over there. She is stuck because of the weather conditions. So maybe in our next show, we can get some fun stories from Liz on her trip.
She's still there. She was the senior women's team manager. They got the silver medal in the team race. There was some great racing, but there's also some really amazing racing in Valencia. We haven't spoken about that because it kind of fell in between the recording of the two shows. But my, oh my, wasn't it good?
It was so exciting. Kelvin Kiptum turned up in his debut marathon and ran 2:01:53, just obliterating the previous debut record. So it was, he ran the fastest second half ever. He ran 60 minutes and 15 seconds for the second half of that race. Just beautifully run by this debutant. It makes me so excited to see the career ahead of him.
I mean, it's stunning. 60:15 for a second half, 2:01:53 on his debut. It was also the debut in the women's race. It was Chebet Gidey, the world 10,000 meter champion, who was making her debut. However, she was upstaged by Amane Bariso, who ran the third fastest women's time ever with 2:14:58. 2:14:50. Here we go again, Deena. This is the theme, isn't it?
Every time we speak, our jaws are dropping at the performances in women's marathon running. Chebet Gidey did break the debut record, which was broken twice this year already. There were 8 national records at this race. 18 men broke 2:08. I mean, it just goes on, but great performances in both the men's and women's field. 21,000 finishers, a lot of personal bests in there, I would imagine.
That's epic, isn't it? 18 men running under 2:08.
And national records from Ethiopia, Morocco, Australia, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, Croatia, Spain, and Mauritius. Unbelievable.
Valencia is obviously a race to go to, pretty rapid.
Yeah, and I would probably book a few days afterwards to enjoy
a bit of Spanish wine.
Yes.
It wasn't all good though, was it? CJ Albertson didn't have such a good time, did he?
No, and the poor guy posted on his Strava that he only made it to 9 miles. He was having some problems. There was a poop emoji in his title of his Strava, but CJ Albertson obviously going there to run fast. And this is a marathon problem, right? I mean, if your day is going to go smoothly, it goes well. And there's so much that can go wrong, and bathroom breaks are one of them. I'm going to just go out and put it out there that my best finish at the Boston Marathon was 7th, and I had 2 bathroom stops. I wasn't wearing my feces that day like CJ Albertson did, but there was porta potties along the way at the appropriate time.
I was wondering where that was going to go.
Yeah.
I was thinking, thinking, where's Deena going with this one?
Clean sport, #clean sport has a new following right now.
It is so common, actually, isn't it? And of course, we sympathise with CJ Albertson, but it's uncomfortable, and you never know. Like when you're gunning for a time and everything's there, and the last thing you want is to think, "Oh no, I'm gonna have to stop for like a world record sit down, like a proper speed poo, in order to be out within 20 seconds," or or I'm just gonna have to try and keep going and see what happens, and sometimes that doesn't end well, and that was the case. Anyway, should we move on to a fantastic little event in Honolulu?
Yeah, this was so fun that they had a battle of the sexes in Honolulu, and the women had a 29-second head start over the men. Scotland's Neil Gorley won it and said he actually felt bad chasing the women down, which I thought was really funny. I actually asked Andrew, I had to call him, he was in San Francisco, and I said, honey, if we were to race a mile right now, unfortunately, back in the height of my career, Andrew still would have had to give me a head start because he was a 1,500 meter runner. That's his event. But right now he has plantar fasciitis problems. And so I questioned, who would give whom the head start right now if we went head to head in a mile? And he said, I think if I popped a fistful of Advil and a shot of whiskey, I could still run you down. And I thought, all right. So I think we need to have a little battle of the sexes in my family. What would the over-under have to be for you and Liz? Would you give her what kind of head start? Or would she be giving you a head start? How are your...
Let's not get out of
How
there.
are your park runs going, Martin?
Yeah, she would, not at the moment, I think I would need to give her, quite a go, quite a head start. But neither of us have running a fast mile is such a brilliant thing to do. It's such a brilliant thing to do because it takes, a completely different mindset and a completely different approach to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, however long minutes of pain. I really enjoy a hard mile. I think I'd probably have to give Liz about 40 seconds.
Okay.
Let her go 40 seconds and see if I could catch her. Maybe about that. It depends because she's a bit gritty, so it wouldn't be easy.
Yeah. And especially coming off the European cross-country championships, she's probably like harnessing all that grit she saw in being the head coach there. So I wouldn't schedule it anytime soon because she's inspired. JohnBoy Smith is a Paralympian, the British marathon record holder, Commonwealth Gold medalist, and the only wheelchair athlete to race in all Abbott World Marathon majors this year. JohnBoy, welcome to Marathon Talk.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We actually have a lot in common being professional athletes, but one thing that stood out last year is you were racing a marathon in England and you dislocated your shoulder in that race and couldn't finish. I got my shoulder dislocated in the Tokyo Marathon in 2019. I got shoved and knocked to the ground twice in that race. And one of the times I dislocated my shoulder and I didn't realize it until 2 weeks later when it was the only thing on my body that wasn't healed. And I had to get it popped back into place. So did you have to get yours put back into place?
Yes. Oh, that was horrifying. That was, but I'll tell you what it was. It was, the injury was more complex than what we thought because I thought, like, genuinely, it was just my shoulder popped out and the ambulance guys were there, the paramedics, was like, oh, no problem, we could just pop it back in. And I was like, okay. And this is going to sound gross, but they gave it a few shoves and it wouldn't go back in. And I was like, okay, you can stop with the agonizing pain now. And they said, they looked more in depth and they said I tore my rotator cuff. I think my anterior delt was torn as well, and some other little muscles in your shoulder that I can't remember what they're called, but basically all the muscles that hold in your shoulder joint were completely shot.
Oh so my gosh!
It was a lot more than just a dislocated shoulder. But yeah, I wish they would have discovered that before they tried to pop it back in. Yeah, it was just like a huge mess, just trying to cram back into a little socket. So.
Oh my gosh, only JohnBoy can see the look of horror on my face as he's telling this story. It's so painful. And did you get cleared for racing though? You raced 10 days later? Do I have that right?
So I think it was 10 weeks.
10 weeks. Okay.
So I have a sports therapist. I've been seeing her weekly since 2015. Like literally every week, even Christmas week, I'm booked in with her. The St. John's ambulance guys over here in London, They looked at me and they said, straight off the bat, they said, you're out for the next year. They said, forget about even touching a racing chair for the next 12 months. And this was in March, I believe. Sorry, this was April. And I was given the no-go to race for 12 months. And the race that I tore my shoulder and popped my shoulder out was the second to last qualifying marathon I had for Tokyo 2020. So... And they were like, forget about the games. Like, this is the second time I've been told this news to forget about the games. Like, I missed out on Rio and stuff like that. And my sports therapist, Cheryl, she said, don't worry about that. We'll get you back on track. She said, give me 12 weeks. I think I know what your problem is. And then we had it was 12, I think it was 10 weeks after that. I was in the London Marathon. It was the lockdown marathon we had. I think we were just doing some laps around St. James's Park. And to add insult to injury, I got a flat in that race, I believe, at mile 5. So, and that was it. It was game over for me to get qualified for Tokyo. But luckily, there was one other marathon that gave me a shot. I believe it was Grandma's Marathon in Duluth.
Yeah, it's a fast one.
It was extremely fast. So fast forward, I think it was 2 months after this. So I got the injury in March. Then I can't remember when the London Marathon was. I think it was like I say, 10 weeks after that, I believe. And then Grandma's was the following year in June. And luckily, I got a 4-minute PB and a very good qualifying time for Tokyo. So it was one of those races. It was a roller coaster. It was, as you know, being a professional athlete yourself, you get an injury. Okay, how long is this going to last? What toll is it going to take? Will I come back stronger? Will I come back at all? It's, the emotional roller coaster that you're on. So that was a strange few months for me, but got there in the end.
Absolutely. The king of resiliency right there. Don't tell you can't do something. Yeah. And then fast forward, what an amazing year to be a Paralympian and be able to compete on that stage. There's so much pride. Could you talk about representing your country and that dream coming to fruition?
It was so strange for me. Let's go back to 2016, for example. I wasn't told I was actually going to go, literally right up until the selection. But a few guys over at British Athletics said to me, if you just keep doing what you're doing, you've qualified more than enough times, just keep doing what you're doing and you will go to Rio. And about 8 weeks before selection, I actually ended up in hospital with, we call it bed sores over here, skin ulcer, pressure sore. Actually laid me up in bed for 4 months on bed rest. So that's how I missed out on Rio. So I actually got I got the selection, but I was actually on a recovery ward in hospital when I was called by the guys who select the team. And I was like, they said, yeah, congratulations, you've been selected for the marathon event. And I was like, I'm sorry to say, but I'm actually in hospital right now recovering from a skin ulcer. So the 4-year journey up until then, like 2016 to 2021, 5 years, it was crazy. But I trained so hard. Like, I had a good year in 2018. I got a silver in the Commonwealth Games in Australia. Just kept, just grinding away. And to finally have that phone call to say, congratulations, you're going to my first Paralympics it was emotional. I mean, there was the relief that I finally got selected, like, to represent Great Britain. Just to, like, I've never, like, even as a spectator, I've never been to an Olympics or a Paralympic Games before. So to get thrown in the deep end and say, not only are you going to a Games in general, but you're going to represent your country, and this is going to be a full-on Paralympic journey, the start of a Paralympic journey,
Yeah, it's actually such a great lesson for your daughters to learn just from watching your career, is that we can have plans and goals and we might want to accomplish them in a certain amount of time, but to show that persistence pays off is such a great lesson for them to see. Is that part of your motivation in your own striving, is so that you could be a good example for them?
I'll be honest with you. It's not just for my daughters or my family. Like, obviously, I want to be a great role model for my, no pun intended, a great role model for for my daughters. But I just want to inspire anybody of any age, of any background, to show, if I can do it, anybody can. Like, after I won gold at the Commonwealth, and this is the honest truth, a lot of people were saying, was it just a publicity stunt or whichever? But I come from a working class background. I haven't got hundreds of thousands in the bank. What you see is what you get with me. And I literally, the run up to the games, I've not got a gym membership. Well, I didn't have a gym membership because I didn't tell a lot of people, but I didn't even have the money to pay £30 a month for a gym membership. I was training in my garden, in my single garage, with a few dumbbells that somebody had loaned me and a wood burning stove in the corner for some heat. That was what I was doing for my strength and conditioning. And again, not a member of any clubs or any gyms or anything. I was just pushing on my local roads, getting the miles in to try and do the best I could with what I had. And I just try to give that example. If you don't give up, it doesn't matter what you have in the bank, where you come from, what you do for a living. If you've got the determination to get somewhere, that's all you need. It's not about the size or how deep your pockets are or fancy equipment and the best sports clubs in the world backing you. It's more about the size of your heart. And the key element is to never give up. If you have a dream, you have to chase that dream and pursue it as much as you can, as hard as you can, for as long as you can, until you get there.
Oh, amazing. I think it was like a year ago or maybe very early this year, in one of your Instagram posts, you quoted Elvis Presley, which I love because this quote has actually been on my chalkboard here at home before as inspiration for my own family. But the quote is, "Ambition is a dream with a V8 engine." Yes, exactly. Yes. So to me, that sounds like ambition's that mental side. So I would love to know how you work on that part. I don't think all of us are born with ambition. We create it. So how do you work on that mental side of your training?
So the mental side of it, that's, in my opinion, that's the hardest part. Like, it's physically, it takes a long time to get fit, and it takes a lot of work to become an elite endurance athlete or any elite athlete in whatever chosen field you decide to take part in. But the mental side of it, it's the simple way to put it is I just don't give up. Like before I was a wheelchair racer, like this would be a good example. I was actually a javelin thrower, a seated javelin thrower. I did javelin and discus, and I was number one in the world. Like I said, I wanted to be whatever I chose to do. I wanted to be the best at, not just in Britain, not in Europe. I wanted to be the best in the world. And in 2013, I was ranked number one on the IPC rankings with in the javelin event. And my discipline, which was F55 javelin, that was my Paralympic category for jav, was withdrew from Rio for some reason or another. A lot of political red tape was behind it. And a few friends of mine that work with British Athletics, they actually said to me, this is whilst at a competition, they said to me, got some bad news for you, JohnBoy, but F55 jab had just been pulled from Rio. And I was like, okay, this is a great time to tell me this. I was in a warm-up area, just about to go into a call room in Germany, in Berlin. It was the IPC championships. And I was like, great. So I said, so what can I do? What's the furthest I can go with this? And they said, if you win this competition, that's it. That's the furthest you can take this. And I won the competition and I was like, great, where do I go from here? What do I do? And the same friend that warned me that F55 jab was taken from Rio, she sent me a text message saying, see you on the track with a question mark. And I was like, okay, she probably means wheelchair racing. And honestly, I'd never seen wheelchair racing in real life, never seen a chair, heard a few names. I didn't really follow wheelchair racing back then. And this was on a Sunday, I believe. Yes, it was a Sunday. I Googled wheelchair racing in southeast England. And Tuesday afternoon, I was at a wheelchair racing club and I just turned up. I said, like, who's the head coach? They said, Jenny Archer, who was my coach at the time, said, go, if she's over there, go and see her. And I went up to Jenny and I was like, never seen a wheelchair, never been in one, only seen it on TV. I'm going to be one of the best wheelchair racers in the world. And she said, okay, let's have a shot, let's go for it. And the rest is history. It was just the mindset of, I'm getting to the Paralympics one way or another. I don't care if someone has to give me a piggyback ride down 100 metres to win a gold. I'm getting there somehow. And it's just a desire to achieve what I've set out to do. I just want to be the best in the world at whatever I choose to be the best in the world at, whichever discipline I try and take on. I'm just determined to be the best I can be.
Yeah. So from Paralympian, I want to focus on this year because I just feel like it was so heroic that you were the only professional athlete to race all 6 world marathon majors. Okay. You were 6th in Tokyo, 3rd in Boston, 4th in Berlin, 10th in London, 6th in Chicago, and 11th in New York City. Can you speak to what it took? I mean, those weren't the only races you did this year, but those are high-level competitions. Speak to what it took to accomplish that, because life gets in the way. I think didn't you have COVID before Berlin?
That's right. So before Berlin, I actually picked up a virus. Not sure where I picked it up from. Like, the doctors actually thought I picked it up in the airport in Berlin. And honestly, it came over me. It hit me so hard. Like, because I'm a very positive person. Like, I don't care who I'm up against, the best in the world. I'm always confident. I'm always there. I'm ready to go. Like my wife actually thinks I'm crazy. Like, she came to me with me to the New York Marathon, and it's 4:00 in the morning, and I'm literally giggling. I've got goosebumps because I was like 3 hours until race day, and she's looking at me. She's still in bed. She's like you're crazy. Like, where's this adrenaline coming from? Like, and I was like that before Berlin. Like, I felt a little bit tight in the chest, but I was like, oh, okay, it's probably nothing, just to change of climate, whichever. And literally, I was 5 kilometers into the Berlin Marathon. It was about 9 minutes in, and it hit me like a shot. I mean, I was holding 3rd position, 4th position, and I just started slowing down. I was just dropping, and I'm pretty sure it was the slowest marathon that I'd ever done. It was crazy. And yeah, I just had to get through it. Like, every fibre in my body was telling me to quit, just to pull over, because I wasn't gonna. I'm sure I was the last male athlete to cross the line. Like, but I got to mile 9 and I was like, okay, just try and keep going. Mile 10 was getting worse. By mile 13, every fibre in me was saying, just pull over. But getting back to the mental side of it, my brain was like, you're a warrior, you can get through it. Just finish the race, So it was a hard slog for me, Berlin, but yeah, it was, and that was another challenge thrown at me, another spanner in the works, so to speak.
So you struggled through that. You made it to the finish line, which really is a feather in your cap, because when you're suffering like that and you still make it to that finish line, it makes you realize how strong you are, whether that's a physical or mental toughness, probably both. But you had 2 weekends of racing ahead of you, back-to-back racing. So you had to get ready for London and then Chicago. So what was that week like besides traveling?
So what I tend to do, so before Berlin and London, so I think I left Berlin Sunday night. So I raced on Sunday. It's only an hour or two flight for me to get back to London. Just did some stretching, some loosening up, just 2 or 3 miles here and there, just to keep everything, like keep the cogs oiled and everything like that. Then I was at the London Marathon Race Hotel on Thursday, so it's only 3 or 4 days, and then you're back in the saddle. It's just, for me, it's just literally chilling out, eating the right food, keeping hydrated, just keeping sharp mentally and physically. And London was a very eventful race for me. Don't know if you've heard about what happened in London.
Is it your chair? Did your chair rip or something?
Yes. So at mile 2, I hit a speed bump. So again, I'm in the lead pack. I think I was holding 5th at this time. I hit a speed bump a little bit hard, and the seat that I sit on in the racing chair, made of carbon fiber, but it had a weak point and I didn't see it. So it cracked. Like I felt the chair give just a little bit. Like you just feel like a little bit of a drop in the seats kind of thing. I was like, okay, it's just a little chip or a crack or something. I can get through this. Just kept going. I think I was holding 5th position in London all the way, like even though the chair was a bit cracked. And mile 22, they were supposed to pave over a pothole or something like that. It was quite a big pothole. Everybody else saw it but me. And I think I hit this pothole doing about 21, 22 miles per hour. Hit it quite hard, and then I just felt the entire chair, the seat of the chair, collapse underneath me. And the way we sit in a kneeler in a racing chair, it's kind of like you're sitting on as if an able-bodied person would be sitting on their calf muscles, like you're sitting on the floor, sitting on your knees or your legs, so to speak. And that's the main support in the chair. So every time I was pushing, I was just bobbing up and down rather than the energy and my power going through the chair, if that makes sense.
That messes with your mechanics, I would imagine, horribly so.
Yeah, you can do, like, well, I discovered, like, this was the first time it happened to me, that you can do nothing with your seat taken away. There was no power or structure in the chair. And again, my mentality was like, oh, it's just a broken seat, no problem, I can get through this, I'm still holding 6, I'm going to finish in the top 6. I was like, I can beat these guys with or without a broken chair, let's go. And then when it came to the sprint finish, I tried to put in some power and everybody just flew by me. And I think, did it say I came 10th or 11th or somewhere like that? I believe it was
10th place. That was pretty
10th,
good for finishing the last 10K with a broken chair. And many people would have just justified pulling over and getting a ride to the finish, but not you. You're atypical.
I'll try.
And you got your chair fixed. Because then the next weekend you're racing in Chicago.
Exactly. So the race, London, was on Sunday. I went home on Monday, had the chair repaired on Tuesday, flew to Chicago on Wednesday.
Does it cost extra to rush repair a chair to, like, I would imagine, like triage at the chair hospital where you're like, this is an important chair, I'm getting on an airplane in a couple of days. Yeah.
Well, it was, luckily I had a stroke of luck with that, because I was rushing around trying to get the chair fixed. Obviously I had 1 day to get it done. The guys because my chair is actually manufactured in Florida, and the guys were saying to me, we can get a new seat, no problem at all. We'll deliver it to you in Chicago. However, it's going to cost $500. And I was like, wow, okay, I kind of don't have $500. I have to, but if beggars can't be choosers at this point, And a crazy thing happened, because I put it on Facebook, like on a local group, and I said, can anybody help me repair my chair? I just needed some patchwork done. And a friend of mine who I've known, like, I'm 33 years old and I've known this guy for 30 years. He calls me and says, "Didn't you know I can repair and make carbon fibre?" And I was like, "Oh, I didn't have a clue." He said, "Oh yeah, just drop it round to me." Like he repairs and builds stuff out of carbon fibre in his living room. 15 minutes, done and finished. So there you go. Merry Christmas.
Oh, that is amazing. That is so fantastic. So one of the things with wheelchairs is they are so expensive and the technology is just getting better and better, like similar to shoe technology, that records are being broken and your equipment really matters. How do we go about making these chairs accessible to the youth that is now being so inspired with the publicity of the wheelchair races, specifically in the Abbott World Marathon Major Series, with showcasing you athletes as well as they have? You have a camera on you from start to finish. You now have Amanda McGrory and Kurt Fernley in the television booth commentating brilliantly on what they're seeing unfold. And so we're inspiring more people to get involved in wheelchair racing. So how do we make these chairs more affordable?
That is a great question that not only myself is being confused about and asking the same question, but almost every elite wheelchair racer, male or female, are asking that same question. I mean, there's loads of great manufacturers out there, don't get me wrong, but there are four main manufacturers. You've got the chair that I use, or the brand I use, called Top End. They're based in Florida. Straight off the mark, standard chair is $12,000. Then you've got another American manufacturer called Carbon Bike. They make hand cycles, ski equipment, racing chairs. One of those is $10,000 standard. Then you've got the chair that Amanda used to race in, like Manuela Shah, that she's using, Susanna Scaroni.
Is that Honda?
The Honda chairs, yep. The cheapest one you can buy of those is $25,000. Then you've got the great Marcel Hug, the Swiss guy who's got his super duper UFO kind of chair. That is 36,000 Swiss francs. I'm not sure what that is in dollars or pounds, but
it's expensive.
It's crazy. I mean, it's crazy. And the only thing that the IPC actually came up with was they're trying to cap the cost of a racing wheelchair at $25,000 maximum, because then it makes it more affordable for everybody.
And maybe even with the manufacturers getting so much exposure, they'll now have programs where these chairs are available, even if on loan, to athletes around the globe, because it's a problem that needs to be solved. But with every problem, there is a solution.
Definitely.
We just need to come together to find it.
Exactly. I mean, like you said, if they could somehow, I don't know, the manufacturers do like the pay monthly. What do you want to call that?
A mortgage. It's basically a mortgage.
Yeah, basically. You know what I mean? It's because it's crazy. I mean, like if my next chair, for example, the one that wanted to actually get me to Paris in 2024, is a Honda chair. I believe that's one of the best chairs you can buy. But I haven't got 25 grand. I mean, if they did a scheme where you could say, oh yeah, you pay X amount for X amount of months, then I'd be on a plane to Japan to get one. It advanced the sport so much. Everybody would get faster. Everybody would have better chairs, better equipment. You know what I mean? Even for silly reasons, like it'll look better on TV. More records would be broken. Do you get what I mean? It'd be there has to be a solution one way or another to get these things at a better price. I mean, there can't be too many kids out there that's got so much backing they can just willingly walk into a manufacturer and say, oh yeah, can I have a top end chair for £12, please?
Right, absolutely. But I think one of the things that excited me specifically in the New York City Marathon was how many young racers were out there. The fields were so deep, and to see so many young athletes racing in the wheelchair division just filled me with so much pride. And it's because of people like you advocating for the sport. So what would you say to those young athletes to motivate them to come on board, like what happened to you?
Exactly. I mean, it's a great sport to be involved in. I mean, wheelchair racing has taken me to places and countries I didn't even know existed. I've got friends from all over the world, and great friends. Like, I'm very good friends. I'm very close with the Japanese team. Kurt Fernley, good friend of mine, comes from Australia, the other side of the world for us, you know. And it's just, and not only that, it just gives you some purpose. Like for me, after my injury, I didn't know where I was going with my life. Like, I tried so very hard to be a positive person and just say, I'm going to do something. Because I'm a glass half full kind of person. And it was just like, I was just putting on a front so people wouldn't feel sorry for me. But wheelchair sport, particularly wheelchair racing, actually gave me that sense of pride, that sense of freedom. Do you know what I mean? Like when you watch the guys in the Tour de France cycling, it's the same for us, like to be a part of the world majors. We've got our own series that we get some great prize money. So the equality between able-bodied and parasport is we're still like this being parasport and this being able-bodied sport. It's almost balanced now, and it gives us a sense of, me in particular, that sense of like, we're all just equal, we're all as good as each other. There's nobody better than you, there's nobody better than me. It's an amazing sense of freedom. It's something you can't put a price on.
Right. And the exposure and prize money has become equal, but the pride in representing your country is always the same.
Exactly.
The pride in being on a podium at a world marathon major is always the same. So it should all be equal. If you were to look at all of the Abbott World Marathon majors, I've asked this of 6-star finishers, which race is your favorite?
So I would have said, I've got two answers. I've got one answer to this, but it's a complicated one. I always thought it would be London, being my hometown. But when we went into lockdown, when all the races were cancelled and everything like that, I missed New York so much.
Interesting.
Honestly, the New York Marathon, I was relieved that the Berlin was back, London, Chicago, Tokyo, and everything like that. But the joy in knowing that I was going back to New York, and don't get me wrong, New York is the hardest course that in the World Major Series. It's
hilly.
It's torturous. It's crazy. I mean, you start on the Verrazano Bridge. The first mile of the New York Marathon is
uphill,
a climb for a solid mile. But it's the hardest and it's the most challenging. And there's some parts on that course I actually had nightmares about. Literally had nightmares about.
So why do you like it?
It's a great place. I mean, because I come from the country. I live in the rural countryside in southeast England. I mean, I'm literally sheep and cows and woods and forests everywhere. That's where I live. And New York is a completely different world to that. And not only that, the race is a challenge. It shows you what you're made of. Like, it's all, and not only that, it's the last one as well. So you do 4 or 5 other marathons and the ones in between, and it's like, New York's where it's at. Now we're going to see how much I can really take.
Right. You just give it everything you've got because you don't have to recover for the next weekend or anything. And so do you think that that's your biggest strength as a racer, is that the harder it is, the grittier you are, and so you know you're going to do well? What is your strength as a racer? Is that it?
I do believe that my confidence and my positivity gets me quite far. Like my most successful New York, for example, I think it was 2018. I believe I came second 2017, 2018. I had so much confidence going into that race. I was on the second line on the elite grid, and that was the furthest I'd been up. And I remember sitting there, and I looked to my left, and there was Marcel Hugh. I looked to my right, and there was a few of the other guys. Like I was surrounded by the top 15 in the world, and I was only 2 years into this sport, and so this is my second ever New York Marathon. And I was looking around, and I was like, I'm going to beat every one of you on the hardest course in the world. And like I say, Marcel won that year.
You were second. Weren't you second that year?
I was second. Yeah. And that was my most successful ever marathon. And don't get me wrong, I trained hard. Like, I'm not just saying this, I'm actually quoting Tanni Gray-Thompson. She was commentating on the London Marathon a couple of years ago. And I'm not sure where she got it from, but she quoted me as a tactical genius. She said, I'm very proud of a lady like Tanni Gray-Thompson telling me that.
Wow.
Again, with me, it's 80% mental, 20% physical. And by that, I mean, I think a lot. I use my head a lot, like strategically. I take pride in my mental strength is what carries me through. And the other 20% is the blood, sweat and tears that come with marathon racing, you know?
Right. And so once you're given the title tactical genius, you kind of have to live up to that every time you get out there and race. So does that go on through your head when you're on the starting line? Like, okay, I have to be a tactical genius again.
Yeah. It's hard because with racing, wheelchair racing, I find that there's a lot of things that could happen. Like, first of all, if you have a plan
90% of the time it goes wrong. Nothing ever goes according to plan.
So true.
And you have so much to think about. Like, because a lot of people ask me, like, how do you handle the nerves on the start line? How, being surrounded by these great athletes, it's a 26.2 mile race. How do you cope with it? You literally haven't got time to think. So I honestly believe that most of what I do, what I'm thinking comes naturally, because you could be sitting at, let's say, mile 10 and could be thinking, okay, right, there's 3 guys in front, there's 4 behind. My heart rate is in so-and-so zone. I'm doing this sort of speed. Then, boom, someone comes from the back. Then everything goes out the window. Then you have to respond to what that guy's doing. Then in the next 2 minutes, everything's changed altogether. Then you have to start thinking again. Then you have to start thinking, okay, now I'm 4th, or I'm 2nd, I'm 7th. There's a corner coming up. There's a bridge in 2 miles. It's continuously adapting. Your mind's continuously changing, adapting to the new situation, because, I mean, we're traveling. We average like 18, 19 miles an hour on a good day. And you throw yourself in the middle of 15 athletes who are, you got guys in front, guys at the side, guys at the back. One mistake from any one of us and it all goes wrong. We end up in a pile of twisted metal,
You have to be paying so close attention all the time for potholes,
Exactly.
for collisions, for tangents coming up. And there's so much to think about. And do people ask you that a lot? I feel like I get asked that a lot. Like, what do you think about when you're out there for so long? There is so much to think about, right?
It is so much. And like I said, you go in with a plan. Like with me personally, I go in with a race plan, what position I'm aiming for, so on and so forth. I've never, ever had a race go according to plan, ever.
Yeah.
Because it can all change
right.
in an instant.
It's such a fluid
Then it's like,
thing.
okay, plan A's out the window. Exactly. And then you're sitting there like, right, okay, plan A's just gone out the window. What's plan B? Because you don't think of plan B or C or D. You literally have to go with the flow and hope for the best.
Yeah. I mean, we've all gotten to plan Z sometimes, right? on a day that's not going as anticipated. We sometimes have to work our way down the alphabet. JohnBoy, I am so grateful for this conversation. I just have one last question, because we are in the holiday season and our listeners cannot see how festive you are, but I'm just going to say that JohnBoy is wearing a son of a nutcracker sweater. It is so great. You're in the holiday spirit. What do you want for Christmas? Oh my gosh, it is reversible.
Yeah.
Not even reversible. You flip it up and there is, oh my God.
There's Buddy.
Buddy the elf on the other side. That is so fantastic.
You're lucky I haven't got a Christmas hat on. Trust me. I was going to go the whole way. Trust me.
Oh my gosh. What do you want for Christmas?
What I want for Christmas? Honestly, this is going to sound so cheesy, so cliche, but as long as my kids get everything they want for Christmas and they wake up Christmas morning happy, then I'll be the happiest and proudest father in the world.
Oh, Santa, I hope you heard that he's hoping that his children get everything they want. Hopefully Santa's a listener to the Marathon Talk podcast. JohnBoy, we can
sure he does.
Learn from your persistence, your resiliency, and we look forward to seeing more tactical genius out of you in 2023. Have a happy holidays. And how can listeners follow your future successes on social media? What are your handles?
So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you just search JohnBoy WCR, as in wheelchair racer, my website comes up, everything. So search bar JohnBoy WCR, and you can follow and support me as you wish.
JohnBoy, thank you so much. Your conversation is always enlightening. Have a happy holidays.
You too. Merry Christmas. Thank you.
In each show, we'll be featuring an ABBA World Marathon Majors 6 questions with a 6-star finishers. And on this show, our 6-star finisher is Stephen Rowe. Stephen is from Portsmouth in the United Kingdom. He got his ABBA World Marathon Majors 6-star this year in 2022. His most memorable experience in any major was making friends with other runners from around the world. The thing he wished he'd known about any major before he ran it, those hills in Boston. Which course gave him the most support and why? New York, everyone, he said, in New York. And the fastest course for him was London, which he ran in 3 hours And 52, congratulations on being an Abbott World Marathon Majors 6-star finisher, Stephen Rowe.
Right. This is it for our holiday season, Martin. What did you ask for Christmas this year?
Do you know, I am going to sound really, really boring at this point. Do you know what I asked for? Some new running gloves.
I mean, you probably realized that running in the snow today that you need a fresh pair of running gloves or a second pair over your hands, maybe.
God, isn't it dull? The only thing I could think of, new running gloves. It is because my hands have been freezing lately. Liz is like, what do you want for Christmas? I went, new running gloves, please. She went, okay. That was that.
And what people don't see is that Martin usually records in his office outside the house, which he is now in the home today where it's probably a little warmer than the office outside. Yes. And for me, you know, I feel like life is rich and full, and I love the holidays for connecting. But after shoveling 5 feet of snow off of 2 decks, I either want a snowblower or a house without decks. I might take a sledgehammer and just take my decks down so that I don't have to shovel them next time.
Yeah, the thing is, you're probably posh enough that you can get heated deck, and then you'd never get any snow on it.
Heated deck.
Like, get some under-deck heating.
That is brilliant. Yeah, because the decks are really nice in the summer.
That is the ultimate in extravagance. A little bit of heating under your deck, never get any snow.
I might need another sponsor for that one.
Or 10. Actually, this is not our final show in 2022. We have one more after this one coming out right at the very end of December. And so because it's right at the end of December, Deena and I thought what we would do is we would have a really detailed conversation around how to reflect on your year, how to think about some of the things that have gone well for you, perhaps how to think about some of the struggles and some good ways that you might look forward from them and overcome them and kind of have a good old chew of 2022 and a look forward to 2023. So we hope you're going to join us for that at the end of the month.
We're just going to wrap up the year in a positive, optimistic way and ensure that 2023 is going to be the best year yet for our listeners. That's all for episode 6 of Marathon Talk, powered by Abbott World Marathon Majors. Enjoy the run, wherever it takes you.